Here we are with the Prestige 2PK from Samba model. It's designed by Philip Kolb and it's now coming with a V-tail. It has some really beefy joiners. It's a new tail section with only a small hatch in the middle. Just clips on and tape it best you can so that it's very little drag from this section, I believe. And the V-tails itself, larger than we are used to maybe, but it's a big plane. It has many square decimeter, and these tails are just like the rest of the plane. It's been cured on high temperature, so it's very stiff and still light. These are the normal or possibly strong version. It's 32 grams only each, although they are pretty big. It comes with ready-made control horns, and in the fuse also the control on the end of the push rods are ready-made on this end. On the other end we will cut some openings for the servos, depending on what servos we have. We will install the included wire, which will go only straight back to the receiver, because this is for the wing, of course. And there is linkages, even some bent ones, to get very, very close to the servo so that we have as little slop as possible. In this case I am opting for the MKS HV6110, which has been proven latest years to be quite a good servo, which holds up for even large surfaces on the tail. You will need some basic tools for this work. You need a Dremel or some small cutting tools. You need a drill and some bits for that so that the screws for the servos are, so you only need actually one small drill. You need a screwdriver for the screws. You need some kind of pliers for the push rods, I'll show you later, and you need a little bit of sanding tool, a little bit depending on what servos you are using, just to make sure that there are enough space on the inside. Therefore I have a torchlight, small hole one, just to see how it goes with my sanding and how the wires are going on the inside. I need a small marker tool, not black but some color, because I want to measure and mark the push rods. And you need some basic CA. So now I'll clean up the mess here and start working on the fuse. So here we are with the fuse. We will now Dremel some holes according to the servos we have. And first up we'll mark where the holes should be, or where the servo outline is. So what I'm doing is that I'm marking first of all where the servo horn is. So I'll just make a small mark here where it's going to go down, and we don't want it all the way out to the outside of the fuse or inside, but in a few millimeters from the side. So we also want to put the servo horns slightly offset. So these horns are actually slightly backwards, just a millimeter or two, so that I have more down movement on the tail than up movement. And that is because when we use the brakes we need the down compensation, and then we need a little bit more to be able to push over and get down. So now I'm putting a few millimeters from the end, 1.5 to 2 millimeters, and I'm putting a mark where the screw holes are, and I'm taking it out, and then this next one, Same here, a little bit from the side of the fuse, making a mark. And as you see, I use a pointer which is white, so it's easy to see on the black fuse. And I can also mark for you how big hole I'm going to take. So about here. And to the end. And I'm also making a hole for the wires at the end here. I'm going to take a hole, and for the multiplex connector. And there is a marking inside here that you will see how big it needs to be, because you don't want to take out all of it, because the connector will sit on the outside, pushed against the fuse, and that will make a good connection to the wing. So if this time Samba has opted to send us some special links that are actually bent. They are heated and then bent and then made strong again. That means that you will be able to use as much of the servo as possible, and very short servo horn. So you see here I'm only using a very short servo horn. So now it's time to find the Dremel. You could use a wheel, but you can't get down there really, so it's difficult to use a wheel. So what I'm doing is I'm using a Dremel with nice bits to Dremel out. So let's make some noise. One thing I didn't do now, which you should do, is to pull the push rods out so that you don't Dremel them into pieces. You should also use a mask, which I didn't do now, but I should show you with a mask, because this carbon dust is not good to have in your lungs. Try to do this in not in one go, but try to do it in test fit it, see that it fits before you actually do too much. You don't want to take out too much. You want as much strength in here as possible, because you might have an ugly landing at some point. I like to also take a little bit forward. As you see now, I have both my servo horns are on the front side, so that's easier for us to connect it later. I'll show you why. But the servo horns are on the forward side. Now we need some cleaning, because this dust is ugly. Take away everything and clean it properly. A vacuum cleaner is good. The links provided have a 1.6 millimeter end. So I did have a 1.6 millimeter drill, but you can also use a 1.5 millimeter, put the link on, heat it with a soldering iron, and it will pop in. just like that. So now we will use as much as possible of the servo travel. So pop in there and in there. So now we should get some screws, and these screws are provided with the servos, which are fairly okay. So let's find them. So we make the holes for the servo screws. The holes are ready. I made it with 1.5mm drill bits, and that should be okay. Now we need to make a little bit of sanding inside. So you can actually see now that I've cut for the servos, you can see that I need to make a little bit of sanding just to make sure that the servo does not hit the fuse, but it's on this fuse it was fairly good. The reason why we wanted to sand and the placement of the servo is that if you look in through the end here, you will see the ballast tube guidance, and that means that to use the ballast in the fuse, the servo push rods should not be in the way. That means that the servo push rods needs to be almost out to the outside. Now I'm just checking how far out that my holes are correct. I'll look inside. Yeah, that should be okay. Now we'll do the following. We will install the tail. And the tail end clicks on from the outside to the inside. There, one more to go. There. I don't know if you can see this. Show you like that. That's important that they are from the outside to the in. I will now secure tail feathers, moving part, with some paper tape so that they are in neutral. There. And when we now look inside here, we can see the push rods, and we will mark the neutral point. where the neutral of the servo is. There, that was one. And the second one. So we have a mark here and a mark there. There we go. So now we can unplug the tail again. I like to take them off as often as possible. And the reason for that is that when I'm doing work home, it's very easy to destroy these beautiful pieces just by going in a door or anything. It's a beautiful piece of artwork, I would say, so it's nice to take good care of it. Now I can push rods forward or backwards actually, and you could do one of two things now. You could push them all the way out on the back and then cut them, or as I'm doing now, taking a fine plier and cut them at the mark. There. The other one. So there we cut off the excess. Now I will just pull them up. Bending them slightly, not overdoing it. I pull them up one by one. Take the first one first. So, I'm going to click off this. Now we have the end of the push rod, and we need to cut it one more time, because now we will have it there. And so I'll make a new mark. Holding it on the end and make a new mark of the end of the coupler. So you see, I'm not taking a mark here, but here. I can cut it again. A nice plier is enough. You don't need to use a Dremel or something. And actually I would like a new tool. Now we're gonna find some CA. Careful not over bending them. It is much easier to take them out, but this is also a way of doing it, so you don't have to find the holes. I put a small piece of CA, not much at all. Then I put the coupler on. And then I make a small notch. That's why you have this plier. So it's secure by itself. A bit more. There. Slight bit of CA. Very little. You can use a needle actually, a blunt needle. You can get them on eBay or some DLG distributors. Very nice. Now we'll find the correct servo and hook them on. Pushing them down here. And when these screws are in now, then we are ready with one servo. During our installation, it's wise to just check that it moves freely. And what I see now is that I need to take out a little bit more on the front side here to make it fully down. So I'll do that with the Dremel. So as I told you earlier, it's better to take little bit by little bit instead of taking a huge hole in the beginning. So I'll show you a trick on how I'm mounting it without taking them up, the push rods. So I'll actually put them in here and do it the other way. So here I'm using a scissor plier. I'm holding the push rod, putting in some slight sienna, not much. Think. One more time. Here I'm using scissor pliers. That means you have a scissor, but it's plier on the end, and you can hold them things with them. Putting on some slight sienna on the push rod, not much, very little. I'm putting in the connector or coupler, pushing them together. Now it's connected. I'm even having a slight thin sienna on the end. And I can release it. And it's ready. Now I just need to see that the length are okay, which it seemed to be. And to connect this to the servo, I need to pull it up. Actually, I'll make some bigger hole. So we'll connect the servo. So to connect the servo, there is actually a nice tool for this. It's from Sullivan. I don't think it's for sale anymore, but it's a Sullivan clevis tool. So I'll pick up the push rod, pull it up, and with this tool I can open up the clevis and connect, I don't know if you see it, connect the servo and remove the clevis tool and help it down there. There we go. And we need to put on the screws. Now we're gonna switch over to the tail so you can see what I do there. I have not secured the clevis yet because I wanted to see the length of this thing. There we go. I don't know if you could see that. Now it's secured. And we'll test the deflections. Need slightly more. So since we haven't secured the clevis, we can actually adjust the length from this side. And now you will see that I have a lots of down elevator possible, and I have enough up elevator. I even have almost 16-17 millimeter up, which is more than I need. And the neutral is pretty tight and good. That was one servo, and then we have one to go. Here's the second servo. I have pulled the push rod up, and I have dremeled out a little bit here in the inside here so that it doesn't have a sharp bend up. You can opt to use two different types. Samba provided me with this bent one, clevis, but I'm opting for a normal clevis here. So, to cut this, I have cut it one more time as you saw earlier. Now I'm gonna cut it a second time. So I'm making a mark here on the push rod. Because it needs to go inside the connector. Cutting it with a sharp plier. Then I'm putting Actually, I want to sand it slightly. Just so it grips, glue grips. Doesn't take much. Just slight sanding. And I'm putting just a small drop of glue. Putting on the coupler. There. Now I'm putting on slight more sienna on the end, giving it a kick. And then I'm using the plier to give it a small nudge so that I know it's secure. There we go. Now you can connect the servo. Again, I like this clevis tool, Sullivan clevis tool. I don't think it's for sale anymore. There. Making sure it runs freely. Putting the servo down. Helping it without bending too much. And down. Now I want to check on the inside so that the ballast tube is not compromised. I don't want the ballast to hit the bush rod, which it doesn't do. If the servo horn was bigger, it will hit probably. There. And we can check that we have enough up movement and enough down movement plus. That seems very good. What we'll do now is that we'll secure the clevis. So I'll take off the tail again. And I will actually move the servo forward. And because I have this needle on my thin sienna, I can actually point down a small drop of sienna down in the coupler, down in the clevis, and now it's secure. So we have installed the two servos. Now we need to route the wires. You can do this by hand, just by clicking it off. You don't need a tool for it. Go. We are also going to check this one, that it sits nicely. It goes on only one way. That looks pretty nice. Yeah, it's good. So now we need to open up for the receiver, and I'm going to make a hole here, which is not all the way to the end, but because on my receiver the ends of the contacts is going slightly into this place. I'm also going to make some holes for the antenna, so I'll make a few, or one big hole here, and I'm going to have the antennas going backwards, and according to your length of your ballast, you need to make sure that the ballast doesn't hit your antennas. And I'm going to have one hole from the top with the one antenna up and one antenna down. Again, please use mask when you're doing this. I didn't. So, I have now routed the cables from the servos back to the receiver. I have routed the wing contact, which is here. They are very short, but they are supposed to be short also. Then I have routed a couple of shrink tubes for my antennas. On this model I had short antennas on the receiver, so I took one out to the side, which will go downwards, and one upwards. And I've also made a cable for the motor and also a telemetry cable that I use sometimes to do my testing. So I could save a lot on the weight on this one, but since this fuse will be used also for maybe some heavy duty flying, I have opted for some thick cables and also some shrinking tube on the outside, so that when I put in a huge battery it doesn't affect the cables, it doesn't get destroyed. So this will also be routed, and I could, with normal thinner cables, I would save about 10.5 gram, but I think those 10.5 gram is okay for safety for my case. Okay, then we'll route the last cable. That will go on top of the ballast tube section, and then forward. Could actually be much easier if you do it like that. A little bit of tape will help you route it. Just push it through, and it comes in the front. There we are with all the cables, and the wing contact, as you see, it's loose now. So what I want to do is, I don't want to use cyano on this place because it gets wiggled, and cyano is a little bit too stiff. So either use this PU glue, or you could use this plastic, which is also okay. The best is actually PU glue, because that gives you a little bit of play, and still it will be firm there. So, but if you use this plastic, just put it on a decent amount, press it down, and don't worry, it will fit in the wing, because the seating here is actually perfect. Just remember to put it the correct way, so that the notch is inwards. I can show you. On the wing, the notch is inwards and slightly offset to the side. the excess glue that is here now, that I will peel away. It's already hardened. So I will carefully peel the excess glue away. And the same with these cables to the servos, can also be secured by a little blob of glue. When all the cables are inserted, I like to secure them with a little bit of tape, because the wires that goes in front to the motor is sometimes we tug them a little bit, and that's no good if it's a bad connection. So I actually put a tape in front of the wires, of the connectors I mean. There we go. And one of the servos was a little bit long, so I tug that one in there. Yes. I help them in. And there we are. The receiver is in place. We just need to put all these antennas out, and that will be done by using these sleeves. Actually, take that away. So there. So what I'm actually doing is that I'm using the shrinking tube to hold the antennas. Oops. And then pull them where they should be. And there we are. Now I have got all my antennas out. Then I'm going to secure them in the hole with also a slight bit of glue. And the one on the side here, I want it to point slightly downwards, so that you never have any dark side of the wing. So, and we check on these ones to secure those also. And when I put the fuse in the cover for traveling, I tape these down so that I'm sure that they are not damaged. Antennas is something that we really like to have in one piece. So that concludes the installation actually. Now it's only programming and also mount the motors, of course. And since you see here, I have it long enough so that the wires can actually go all the way up to the controller. and be hidden away over there. That means that the battery can come down without destroying any cables. I will also adjust the CFG with cutting this nose cone according to where the CFG ends up, so that I don't have to use any lead or anything. Okay, see you on the next field out there somewhere.